Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. Forgive all the background noise, but if you want to get into your feelings, I'm just gonna block you because I'm not interested in your feelings. I'm really not. If you don't like what's happening here, get. That has always been my policy. I'm gonna stick to it. Anyway, let's talk about the heavyweight division. So, and obviously the bullshit. I've been talking about the ongoing Kubrat Pulev Anthony Joshua situation, trying and failing to get the people to speak the truth. But that is just our sad reality, right? A world of continual deceit, or whatever the saying is. Anyway, there's this mythology being passed around by mostly Anthony Joshua fangirls that Kubrat Pulev is ducking him, right? That he's scared of him. So the guy that fought Vladimir Klitschko when Vladimir Klitschko was on top, right? Anthony Joshua wasn't fighting Vladimir Klitschko. He didn't fight Vladimir Klitschko when Klitschko was on top, did he? These are just facts. You could get into your feelings all you want, but these are just facts. Did Anthony Joshua fought Vladimir Klitschko when Klitschko was on top? No. He fought Vladimir Klitschko coming off a 2-year layoff and a loss, while Klitschko was already 40 years old, right? These are just facts, fanboys. You know what pisses me off the most about this whole situation and AJ fanboys? Somehow, Anthony Joshua fought the best version of Klitschko ever, right? That was the best Klitschko we've ever seen, they said. Really? Not the Klitschko that knocked out, disconnected from his senses, Kubrat Pulev in 2014? That wasn't the best Klitschko? At least in recent years? The Klitschko that won every round from David Haye? I know that those weren't the official scores, but I struggle to see how David Haye did anything in that fight. That wasn't the best Klitschko? The Klitschko that knocked out Samuel Peter in 10 rounds? Put Eddie Chambers to sleep? Right? The Klitschko that was having the highest, if not one of the highest, or if not one of the highest KO percentage in world title fights? That wasn't the best Klitschko? The Klitschko whose leaping left hook was money in the Kubrat Pulev fight? That wasn't the best Klitschko? No, it was the 40-year-old Klitschko coming off a loss and a 2-year-long layoff where the timing on his left hook was shit. That was the best Klitschko, right? Because Anthony Joshua fanboys, they don't speak the truth, do they? Right? His entire career, Vladimir Klitschko had the chin that was on the level of Amir Khan's chin, right? According to everybody. His fans and his haters. Nobody made any illusions about Klitschko's chin, right? But after he fights Joshua, instead of being real and reevaluating Anthony Joshua's punching power, all of a sudden, Klitschko had a monster chin, right? Because it's about keeping fanboy mythologies alive. It's not about speaking the truth. So, Anthony Joshua did not beat the best version of Klitschko because that Klitschko was coming off a 2-year layoff, coming off a loss, and that Klitschko, a year and a half layoff, whatever, close to 2 years, and that Klitschko, the timing on his left hook was shit. And that was the oldest Klitschko ever. Since when? An all-time great fighter who has an all-time great career, is at his best in his last fight that he loses? Since when? The disrespect of Vladimir Klitschko and the nut-hugging of Anthony Joshua is sickening. So sorry, guys. Most of you out there, you ain't speaking the truth about Anthony Joshua. Meaning, when you're dogging his opponents, his would-be opponents, you're not credible. You want to know who is? I am, because I've always kept it real. So let me rehash the Kubrat Pulev Anthony Joshua situation, because there's just so much nonsense out there. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Pulev fought the best version of Klitschko, right? And that doesn't mean that he's braver than Anthony Joshua, but it's a valid argument. You could make that argument. He fought Klitschko in his prime, and it showed. He fought the best version of Klitschko, at least in the second half of his career, Klitschko's career. And Anthony Joshua fought the weakest Klitschko ever. Okay? The weakest possible. He picked on a shell of a shot fighter. Those are just facts. And the reason why Klitschko looked good in that fight is because Anthony Joshua is not as good as you think he is. That's why Klitschko looked so good in that fight. Duh. But that was the worst version of Klitschko ever, period. Is Manny Pacquiao's best yet to come? Is it? Is it? What a fucking joke, man. What a fucking joke. Anyway, so if you got this guy who, in comparison to AJ, and I'm not saying that AJ's not as brave necessarily, or that he won't be one day, but if you actually look at the record unbiasedly, Pulev, as far as bravery goes, proved a lot more than Joshua ever has. Those are just facts, okay? And he went to Klitschko's home base. Anthony Joshua fought him on his turf with favorable referee, favorable judging, and protection, right? He was protected. Anthony Joshua still is. But that's going to be a central theme in this video. So, you can't sit here and tell me that Kubrat Pulev is a scary fighter. And if he is, then what does that make Joshua? Let's keep it real, right? So when I was hearing that Kubrat Pulev is ducking Anthony Joshua because Eddie Hearn had made him an offer, the details of which nobody knows. Can I see that contract, please? So, and I had talked about this many times. When Pulev was in the number 2 spot in the IBF rankings, steadily working his way up the ranks to become the mandatory for Anthony Joshua. I told you that's what he's doing, right? I mean, it was clear to see that's what he was doing. People were saying he was ducking because he didn't take short money, according to his promoter, Sauerland. He didn't take a lowball offer to fight Joshua. He was ducking him then, right? Fucking fanboys. And then lo and behold, Kubrat Pulev becomes the number 1 mandatory. And the fight is signed. They're doing the press conferences. They're doing the face-off. They're going through with the fight, right? The fight is signed. How was he ducking when he signed the fight? For all of you who had attacked me for telling you that this is going to happen, where were all the I'm sorries and you were right, I was wrong? Where was all that? I didn't have any of you coming back and saying you were right, Precise. A fucking joke, man. Anyway, so this man, Kubrat Pulev, worked his way up to the number 1 mandatory position, didn't take low money, right? Didn't allow himself to be screwed over by Eddie Hearn. Look, let's say he took that lowball offer and fought Anthony Joshua then. What if they're building up the fight and all of a sudden Anthony Joshua pulls out with an injury. What would have happened to Pulyev and his ranking? Would he still be eligible to be the next in line to fight Joshua when he already got his chance? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe that was a way for Hearn to get him out the way. Maybe they would have done something like that. Who knows? But anyway, he worked his way up the ranks. And if you actually listen to Eddie Hearn and Sauerland having their little banter on an IFL video, go check it out, you'll hear Eddie Hearn sounding real bitter and salty and sour about having to pay Sauerland a whole bunch of money for the Pulyev fight, right? He rubbed that in his face. He pointed that out. Look, if they're haggling with Joseph Parker over 2 percentage points, right? And Joseph Parker ends up getting something like 32 or 33%, right? Joseph Parker, who has a belt, who is a bigger star than Kubrat Pulyev, he's barely getting 32 or 33%. You think they were happy about paying Pulyev 25%? Fuck no. You think Pulyev was happy about the 25%? $5 million he was going to get. What professional prize fighter that has shown you that he wants to be champion and will fight the best, has proved to you that he will fight the best, will say no to a $5 million payday to fight someone that's not as good as the Klitschko that he fought? What kind of sense does that make? But you know, you gotta tell yourself all these lies. That was the best Klitschko, that was the Iron Chin Klitschko. You gotta keep just stacking lies on top of lies for this shit to make sense. You've told so many lies, some of you, that you've lost the plot. You've completely lost the plot. So Kubrat Pulyev went for the bigger payday, and look, he got in the best shape of his career. When else did you see Kubrat Pulyev this cut up? What other fight was he this cut up in? Training camp. Not on the scales even, when they're dropping water, right? Water weight. When else did you see Kubrat Pulyev with a, what is that, a 3-pack? A 4-pack? Right? So he gets in the best shape of his career while doing VADA and being proud of it, right? No, I'm not trying to draw any conclusions from this other than, look, it's completely possible to get in the best shape of your career while passing VADA. That's all I'm saying, right? You could draw your own conclusions, whatever that means. But that's what this guy did. Not only did he get in the best shape of his career while doing VADA and having to deal with all that bullshit, he was doing the press conferences, the face-off. He was going through with the fight, right? Is that someone who's ducking? Oh, there goes my internet. Does that look like someone who's ducking? Like, what kind of sense does that make, people? And I hate to tell you that I told you so, but not really. And yes, I did tell you so. So, but he pulls out with 2 weeks left, right? He pulls out of the fight with 2 weeks left. And, well, conspiracy theories start flying, right? Fanboy conspiracy theories. And, look, that's fine. My video is of a conspiratorial kind, but unlike you Joshua fanboys, I'm not going to reject reality. I'm going to keep it real. Yeah, it's going to be a conspiratorial video. It is a conspiratorial video. But I'm not going to reject fact and reality. Because, you know, because it's convenient, because it makes my favorite fighter look good. Now, I don't give a shit about either one of these guys. Anyway, so nobody believes the injury. And I'm very skeptical. I'm always skeptical of all injuries, right? But when you look at what the press are reporting, is you'll see that they're saying, sometimes it's a pec injury, sometimes it's a shoulder injury, and yes, I understand that your hip is connected to your thigh, and it could really be both, but there's a good deal of inconsistency there. Which one is it? Is it the pec? Is it the shoulder? Is it both? Right? So that's a little bit suspect. You got Kubrat Pulyev, you know, a month after he pulls out with this injury, he's, taking pictures with his brother. And I know it could be a very small injury, very small tear that you're not going to be able to ascertain whether it's there or not just from a photo like this one, right? But, his arm is not in a sling, and unless you want to tell me that this is his driver, and maybe it is. No, that looks like the towel guy. He probably drove there. I don't know. And having that injury, driving with that injury, and trust me, I know, would be extremely painful. Okay? But anyway, especially driving stick, which is what they do in Europe mostly, definitely in Germany. Anyway, there's a lot there to make you wonder if he really was injured, right? There's a lot of stuff that's going on that makes one skeptical. And none of Anthony Joshua fanboys, none of them believe that he was injured, right? Because it helps them to substantiate this theory that he was ducking, even though he went through all this shit, right? He's ducking. So I tend to agree with Joshua fanboys that there's something shady going on here. But I'm not motivated by love for a bodybuilder like they are, and then spin the story to justify that love, right? I actually look at the facts and what's going on. And what is going on is, again, that the press isn't very clear about reporting this. What's going on? Like, the details seem to be some contradictory stuff going on, and it is kind of suspect, right? Like all last second pullouts with injuries. And then you have Carlos Takam stepping in, right? And you have Eddie Hearn doing an interview with Radio Rahim on Seconds Out, saying that they had Takam waiting in the wings. And it makes sense. A lot of promoters do this. When you have a fight scheduled, you usually have a backup guy waiting in the wings just in case, right? And this happened with Povetkin and Duapa, right? When juiced up Stavern was going into the fight against Clean Povetkin, and he decided to duck and pull out of the fight, right? And Duapa stepped in as the last-minute replacement, even though they had him training, they had him waiting in the wings, right? The guy came in last minute. He was out of shape. He never even weighed in, but he looked out of shape. He didn't even have his shoes. It was so disorganized. It was really like a last minute kind of a thing, and it looked like it, right? Now when it comes to Carlos Takam, not only is Hearn talking about how they had him waiting in the wings a couple months before the fight, they alerted him to the possibility that he might be fighting Anthony Joshua. They actually offered him a fight. He was supposed to fight on a different card so as to make sure that he was in camp and training and getting ready for some kind of fight, right? Eddie Hearn went the extra mile to secure this guy a fight so that he would be in training camp and training. And check this out. Carlos Takam went into the Anthony Joshua fight in the best shape of his career. Now he's weighed less than that, not by much, in like his debut or his second fight, where he was still not a fully grown man, I guess, or not as big as he is these days anyway, with all the weights and all the drugs that he's been doing, all the weights that he's been lifting. At this point of his career, for the big fights, Takam would come in, 244, 241 when he was in shape, right, for Parker. Came in weighing 241, 242. But when it came to fighting Joshua, he came in the best possible shape. Now, how's that? How did that happen? How was this guy able to whip himself into the best possible shape just fighting some bum in Monaco, which is what he was supposed to do? Why did he do that? Somebody at some point somehow communicated to him that there's a very high likelihood he'll be fighting Joshua. That's why he got in the best shape possible. How else do you explain that? How did he get in the best shape of his career at this point? Just to fight some bum in Monaco. Anthony Joshua's promoter even secured him a fight. So, in my opinion, and look, everybody's venturing into conspiracy theories. If you don't believe the injury, you're at the very least entertaining a conspiracy theory. But your conspiracy theory is bullshit. It's based in fucking love for a bodybuilder. Mine is based in fact. Empirical evidence. Eddie Hearn made sure that Kubrat Pulev would not stand in the way of what? Joshua Wilder, because that is the fight that has to happen in this division. That is the big money fight, and nothing is going to stand in the way of that fight. Now, I'm not saying that Kubrat Pulev would have necessarily beaten Anthony Joshua, but he would have exposed, unless he got knocked out real quick, made a big mistake and got caught and got knocked out. But Joshua doesn't hit nearly as hard as Klitschko did, okay? So who knows if that would have happened. But anyway, Kubrat Pulev might have won the fight. And obviously, he was never going to get a decision, but he might have exposed something about Anthony Joshua, took some of the shine off Anthony Joshua, right? Made some people question Anthony Joshua, shown a potential opponent what can be done to beat Anthony Joshua, right? Kubrat Pulev was not the kind of fight you want to be taking when you got bigger and easier fights lined up for you, like the Deontay Wilder fight. Huge money fight, right? By the time it comes down to it, it's going to be the biggest money fight in the heavyweight division since who knows when. Klitschko Joshua probably, but you get the point. It's going to be a huge fight. So Pulev was always a problem, which is why Eddie Hearn was trying to get him out the way early, screw him over basically, and they didn't fall for it. They did not fall for it. They went through with the fight. They got their 25%. He got in the best shape of his career while doing VADA. Was going through everything he needed to go through to make this fight happen. And then, what happened? In my opinion, and I have nothing to prove this with, but if you're going to sit there and say that Pulev was scared, the evidence, the record doesn't prove that. You can't back that up with anything. Because Pulev proved more as far as bravery goes than Anthony Joshua ever has. And that's just a fact. So you can't tell me that he's scared. What I think happened is he got paid off. I think he got paid off. He basically took step-aside money, basically. I mean, it happens all the time. Step-aside deals happen all the time. But this was a special case because the man wasn't going to just take whatever. You had to pay him a lot of money, I'm sure, to get him to step aside. And you had to cover it up so that Anthony Joshua doesn't look weak. right? And another thing, isn't Eddie Hearn the master of bait and switch? Isn't he? I mean, that's what I always keep hearing from the UK fan base, that he's the master of bait and switch. How is this any different? And somebody tell me how Carlos Takam came into the Joshua fight in the best shape of his career on 2 weeks' notice. Somebody explain that to me. Believe you me when I tell you this, nothing is going to stand in the way of Joshua Wilder. Okay? Now, onto the Wilder side. My keyboard's all whack. Look at this, Forbes. Why winners of Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz must fight in 2018. Now, Anthony Joshua has not been as protected as Deontay Wilder, but make no mistakes, both guys are protected. Do we need to rehash the whole Deontay Wilder nonsense? Look at, this is a Forbes article, people. That tells you everything you need to know. Now, Povetkin was another mandatory that was a problem and was standing in the way of this fight, right? Remember, the fight was a couple of weeks away and there had been no Showtime contract. Showtime never even promoted that fight. There were no promos, nothing. Showtime was not at all investing any money into one of their biggest stars going over to Russia to fight his biggest fight to date. They weren't at all interested in promoting that. While Povetkin and Wilder was scheduled, there was an interview with the Showtime CEO, or I don't know, one of the bigwigs at Showtime, saying that Joshua Wilder is the fight they want. Telling you exactly the deal. Even back then, when Povetkin was standing in the way, they were not interested in buying that fight at all because they knew what was about to happen, if not all the details thereof. They were telling you that they want Joshua Wilder. That's what they were telling you. While Wilder was supposedly going to go fight Povetkin. And then, you know, Povetkin never failed any drug tests, but the fight didn't happen. And, you know, he never went to Russia. They avoided the whole fight, right? They moved Povetkin out of the picture because Povetkin was standing in the way of what Forbes tells you must happen, right? And then, you know, Deontay Wilder ends up fighting Stavern, and the fight looks fixed as fuck. It's just such a joke, man. Stavern, who failed, he legitimately failed his PED test, right? Wilder allegedly doesn't fight PED abusers. Stavern, who it was shown that, you know, he can't get away with using any PEDs like Wilder and Anthony Joshua can. By the way, Stavern, right? Pudgy. Povetkin, pudgy. Fucking Ortiz, pudgy. Vavjik, pudgy. Right? All these guys are PED abusers. But all these, like, chiseled, unnaturally so, fucking Adonises, right? Michelangelo's, Davids, all those guys. They're the clean ones? Who's a moron? Go outside. Sorry, I'm being this... I can't even make a fucking video without getting interrupted. Anyway, it is what it is. What was I talking about? Right. All these pudgy guys are using PEDs, right? But not all these ripped, shredded dudes. Give me a fucking break, man. Anyway, so Stavern got caught, and then when it came to fighting Wilder, he wasn't even in shape. He looked like trash, and he just went in there to collect his paycheck and didn't do anything. Just folded, right? Didn't even look like the 10th of, as far as the will to win, right? A 10th of his former self when he was supposedly dehydrated or had some kind of life-threatening disease or some kind of condition, right? Somehow, some way, they took his will to win away from him before he ever stepped in that ring. Okay? Understand that. And now you have Luis Ortiz. And all of you naive people out there. And shout out to Fox, because he's one of them, who have rejected the reality of the Povetkin situation. Who have rejected the reality of the Stavern situation. All of you naive ones out there. You actually think that Luis Ortiz is going to beat Deontay Wilder. Right? Because the only way you could believe that, and the reason I'm bringing up Fox is because I saw his comment on Del Boy's video, where he's picking Luis Ortiz by knockout, people. Luis Ortiz is going to knock out Deontay Wilder. Look, it could happen, and I'm going to have major egg on my face if it does. But I step out on the ledge all the time and never really fallen on my ass yet. Now, I'm not saying that branch hasn't cracked here and there, or that the ledge hasn't crumbled a little bit, but I have yet to fall on my ass. But I'm going to step out on the ledge here and try to learn from history, because I'm not insane. I can't be looking at the same shit over and over and over and expect a different solution. That would make me insane. Now, that is not to say that Luis Ortiz couldn't necessarily do something that wouldn't be very, advantageous to his health or his well-being or his financial situation or who knows what, right? He could get in that ring and just have this, fuck the system kind of an attitude. You can't fuck me over. I'm gonna do my best, right? I'm gonna try to upset the setup. That is not to say that he couldn't, get some bright ideas in there. But the mere fact that Deontay Wilder is fighting somebody like Luis Ortiz, who really should be a dangerous fight for him, and according to the bookies, save your money, people. Bet on Deontay Wilder. Put everything you got. If you like to take risk, put everything you have. But if you just put in a bill or two, that ain't taking no risk. But if, you really like taking risk, put everything you have on Deontay Wilder. Because he's winning that fight. By hook, by crook, Deontay Wilder is going to beat Luis Ortiz. You want to know why? Because what they did with Luis Ortiz is they communicated to him that even though we know you're clean, you think if Luis Ortiz was actually doing something for real, he would have gotten away with it when he couldn't get away with taking his medication? You know what I mean? What they communicated to Luis Ortiz is, A, you're not going to be able to take any PEDs while I'm going to be juiced to the gills, because that's how we do in America, and that was already proved many times over. There's no need to struggle, and if you do, I'm just going to block you, because I can't deal with people who reject reality. I just don't deal with that. Okay, so what they did is they took away, not only did they take away Ortiz's PEDs, he's gonna have second thoughts about using his meds. I mean, the man has high blood pressure, right? What other health conditions does he have? He's gonna be paranoid about even taking his meds going into this fight. You feel me? And another thing, what they communicated to him is that, look, you could be the #1 mandatory. The whole wild world could be crying, begging, bitching, and moaning for this fight. If we don't want to fight you, we'll find a reason not to fight you, and you will never get this payday. So if you want this payday, because you're 40 years old now, and you don't have any prospects, if you want this payday, you're gonna have to play ball, sucker. You understand? And that's what you have here before you. Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz is not a real fight, people. Just like Stavern was not a real fight. And when you have real fighters like Povetkin, real fighters that aren't in it for just the money, obviously money is always important. But when you got real fighters who will actually go through the fight and they won't throw the fight, they find other ways to get rid of them. You understand? So if they're allowing somebody to fight the half, both halves, either half of the Wilder-Joshua Wilder equation, if you're allowed to fight them, it's either because you have no shot in hell or because they made sure that you ain't going into that fight to win. Do you understand that? You really need to understand that, people. Luis Ortiz is not going to beat Deontay Wilder. He just isn't. Get over it, people. It's not going to happen. Do yourself a favor. Don't put any money on Ortiz. I mean, you want to straddle your main bet, Deontay to win outright with Ortiz by knockout? Yeah. It's an insurance policy. You know, insurance is a scam, honestly, but hey, if you feel good about having an insurance policy, go right ahead, do that. Luis Ortiz is not beating Deontay Wilder, so understand that. Because even though there's #1 challengers, contenders, and real fighters who will go into that ring looking to actually win the fight, that are lining up to fight these guys, the pattern is clear. They're being eliminated. And second tier, you know, not so good opponents like Carlos Takam are being supplanted. And they seem to know this setup because somehow they're able to get in the best shape of their fucking career on 2 weeks' notice. Sauerland is in financial trouble, which is why he took interest in the least popular divisions north of 140 pounds. Right? He's taking table scraps, right? He's working with table scraps basically, and happy to do that. Okay. Kubrat Pulev wanted the most amount of money possible to fight Anthony Joshua. So if you gave him a lot of money for not doing anything, why wouldn't he take that? Stavern could have been suspended or banned from boxing for what he did. And if you knew what he did, you wouldn't disagree with me. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. But if you knew what Stavern actually did, he might never, ever, ever be ranked to do the shit in boxing, right? And he knew this. They had him by his balls, which is why he never even trained for the fight. He just collected his paycheck, and he got the fuck out. At the very least, they took his PEDs away from him, so he was never going to be shit anyway. Right? There was a lot of talk about Klitschko letting Joshua off the hook, right? The best version of Klitschko all of a sudden let somebody off the hook. Terrible scorecards, bad stoppage, Joshua fouling all night and allowed to do so, right? When Klitschko's a dirty fighter who all of a sudden isn't clinching, isn't doing any of that stuff that he normally does, right? Whenever these two, Wilder and Joshua, get in the ring with somebody, long established patterns are broken. Fighters all of a sudden aren't who we think they are when they get in that ring with them. Or some other bullshit happens. And look, if you're going to have a conspiracy theory and you're going to accuse somebody of being a coward, at least consider the facts and the evidence. But as far as conspiracy theories go, people, I'm chess, and most of y'all out there are checkers. Do let me know what you think, but try to keep it real, because that black button, my best friend in this YTBC BS. I don't give a shit about your feelings. Understand that, okay? So don't come over to my channel spilling your fucking feelings. If you got something worthwhile to contribute, and facts are your friend, correct me if I'm wrong. But start talking about your feelings and yourself, I'm just gonna eliminate you, because I can't deal with bitches, man. I really can't. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Let me know if I've missed something here. Let me know if you know, I'm overlooking something that I shouldn't be, and how I got this wrong if you think I did. But, you know, I keep telling you what's going on in this heavyweight division, and time again, I'm proved correct. Not to say that I'm always 100% right, but, you know, sitting there and saying that Kubrat Pulev is scared, that Vladimir Klitschko at the age of 40 is the best fighter ever, coming off a loss and a 2-year layoff almost. That's the best fighter that we've ever seen as far as Klitschko's concerned. That's a whole bunch of fucking fanboy nonsense. That's for damn sure. You know what I mean? But if you believe that, then Pacquiao's best is yet to come, right? Right.